Chapter 1 I am the Eternal Star Ancestor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What happened? Did I transmigrate? Qin Yuan wondered. He was arguing on social media as a keyboard warrior and suddenly the scene went dark. After that, he felt his body being pulled at an unimaginable speed. It was an experience that is hard to describe. When he came to his senses, he appeared here. In a narrow and very dark room, but strangely, his eyes can see clearly. Wait. He touched his body where he felt a strange power that seemed to have no limits at all, enough to destroy a continent with a single glance and even tore through the sky with a hand. At this moment, a bell-like sound suddenly resounded inside his head along with a woman's soft voice. Then a virtual screen appeared in front of his eyes. Ding, karma points. 0, name. Qin Yuan, title. Eternal Star Ancestor, position. Supreme Ancestor of the Eternal Star Clan, cultivation. 10th Stage Saint Ancestor, charm. 10,000, age. 30 days before death, merit law. Eternal Star Technique. Eternal Star Calamity. Eternal Starlight. Eternal Star Army Weapons/Artifacts. Eternal Star Staff. The way to get karma points and charm points is to complete the missions given to you. Karma points can be used to purchase any object you want as long as you know what it is and it exists in the universe. Use 100 karma points to purchase a 1-week life extension. Use 5 karma points to get a piece of your reincarnation memory. If there is something you want to ask, you can ask me. So you can communicate too. I can. And who are you? There is no answer to that question yet. You can call me System, that's all I can say. Qin Yuan wasn't sure how to react. He finally changed the topic. So who am I here and where am I, what world is this? Wait, I don't even have karma points, how can I ask? Don't worry, for this, you can your karma points will be deducted later. Would you like to be in debt? Alright. Qin Yuan nodded with a wry smile. Ding, order accepted. 5 karma points are used to find out your information and 5 are used to find out the basic information of this world. Karma points point 10, right after that, Qin Yuan found memories that didn't belong to him appeared in his head. Divine world, this is an enormous world with millions of continents within. Countless races live in this world, including legendary races like Dragon, Phoenix, Elf, and many more. There are even so-called God Clan and Devil Clan. The core of this world is cultivation starting from Hotian realm, Xiantian, core formation, nascent soul, sage, sovereign, transcendent. Each of these 7 realms had 10 stages. After that, there was the extremely profound Paragon realm. This was the beginning to enter the pinnacle. There are 2 paths after the Paragon realm. The Heaven's path to become a divine emperor and the Saint path to become a Saint Ancestor. The former was more difficult because one had to rob the divinity from the heavens. This was the path for supreme geniuses with strong hearts and desire to reach heaven. The Saint path, on the other hand, is much easier. One only needed to cultivate in an orthodox manner. The first is to build the foundation by creating 100 saint fruits. But it's still not enough to compete with divine emperors even though they can kill paragons with a glance. One still had to integrate 10 saint fruits to be considered a first-stage saint ancestor. Speaking of speed, divine emperor cultivation was much faster. 1 generation, 5,000 years, was enough for them to reach their highest limit. On their first divinity robbery, they could usually rob 3 to 5 divinities. The next one was only 1 or 2, but the time required for the second divine robbery wasn't very much. Since most divine emperors were supreme geniuses, those who lived to their second generation were mostly already at stages 6 to 9, below that was so much rarer that it was almost non-existent. Saint Ancestor cultivation on the other hand required a long process. It took several generations for them to reach their highest limit. And in those generations, there's always been a lot going on, death being one of them. Here, Qin Yuan was already at the 10th stage Saint Ancestor with 100 Saint Fruit integrated, that was the pinnacle of the realm. Even in the history of the divine world, only 15 people had managed to reach this stage. They were existences that even divine emperors feared, while great emperors or 10th stage divine emperors with 10 divinities respected them. People usually called them Eternal Saint Ancestor, the word eternal added in their title. Qin Yuan would probably burst out laughing if it weren't for the one matter that frustrated the original owner of his body. Due to an accident in a battle 30,000 years ago, his age dropped drastically and now only 30 days remained. It was also the result of him selling many of his treasures and his clan's treasures. Of course, he wouldn't die in 30 days because he sealed his body in the longevity coffin, so his age reduction was thousands of times slower. However, he was no longer able to dominate the world as before. Now he can only come out with his spiritual body, whose strength is very weak because too much power being sent to the spiritual body can also reduce his lifespan. This does not mean there is no way to solve this problem, but it is too difficult and dangerous. One that is harmless but very difficult is to marry the goddess of life, taking her virginity to obtain the supreme source of life. Too bad, even though he was the most extraordinary man in the history of the Eternal Star clan, famous for their good looks, he was still unable to make this woman smile at him. In fact, there wasn't a single man in the divine world who could make her smile. Ah, I still have to fight, but it's still better than having to fight from the bottom. By the way, how do I use my power? Qin Yuan knew he had boundless power within his body, but he didn't know how to use it. 5 points for that. The system answered. Qin Yuan nodded. Order accepted. 5 karma points are used to obtain information on how to use power. Karma points. Point 15, Qin Yuan immediately found a way to use his strength. This amazed him greatly because his strength was basically only one level below the word Almighty. With his strength, he could immediately tell what kind of figure he was. Even though he was an old man on the verge of death, he actually had the appearance of a man in his late 20s with a very handsome face and long white hair and sharp golden eyes that could surely make ordinary women lose their sanity with just a glance from him. This really was the appearance of an immortal in a fairy tale. He then activated his heavenly eyes. The scene outside the longevity coffin immediately appeared. It was a simple basement. However, from every side, there was a boundless radiance of spiritual aura, enough to turn an ordinary old man into a young man again with just one breath. Right at the side of the coffin sat a handsome young man with long hair. His eyes flashed a golden light, seemingly capable of illuminating continents and seas. The information about the Eternal Star clan was still sketchy, so Qin Yuan asked the system again and his karma points were cut again. Karma points. Point 20, immediately he got the information. It turned out that this young man was a 5th stage divine emperor, the newest divine emperor in the Eternal Star clan. His name was Qin Jian and his title was Star Sword Emperor. The Eternal Star clan had 4 divine emperors and 30 saint ancestors. The number of saint ancestors was far greater. This was the same for the other factions, as becoming a divine emperor required extraordinary talent. Of course, among the 30 saint ancestors, most had not yet reached the 1st stage, they were only ordinary saint ancestors. Qin Jian had actually been able to rob the 6th divinity. The problem was not with him, but the many enemies waiting to ambush him. For now, he was postponing because he wasn't sure he could hold out. Ding, help Qin Jian to rob the 6th divinity, you will get 1000 karma points and 500 charm points. Oh! Qin Yuan's eyes shone. His spiritual body appeared by the youth's side, causing him to be shocked. Ancestor, he said absent-mindedly. It was very rare for the ancestor to come out, it made him wonder. Qin Yuan cleared his throat, pretending to be wise. Jian, your foundation is very stable now, maybe it's time for you to rob the 6th divinity, prepare yourself, I will personally protect you, he said, leaving Qin Jian shocked. Ancestor, what are you saying? He asked with an expression of disbelief. Don't ask anything, just follow my words, Qin Yuan replied as he patted his shoulder. After that, he exited the basement. The Thousand Stars continent, this is an enormous continent. It might not be in the top 50 on the divine world, but it still had billions of cities and trillions of mountains. The unique thing about this continent and the surrounding region is that the sky is always night and full of stars, it never even rains here. Every now and then, there were starlights falling from the sky, some showing astonishing divine phenomena. In the center of the continent, there was an enormous city with a palace consisting of 10,000 foundations. Countless people kowtowed to the palace as they passed while the guards wore proud expressions the entire time. Qin Yuan walked out of the palace in awe. The city that appeared in front of him made him wonder how big it was. It had 10,000 major roads that connected the fort to the city center. The fort itself was tall and majestic, like a mountain range. Is this the strength of the younger generation of the Eternal Star clan? This is too weak, who else can stand against me? Qin Yuan was just enjoying the view of the city when he heard a loud voice echoing from the distance. In fact, the voice wasn't actually audible, it was just that he could hear every voice challenging the Eternal Star clans on this continent. It was the voice of a woman, perhaps still young. The arrogance in her words made Qin Yuan couldn't help but peek at the location where the voice came from. It turned out to be from a field not far from the city. Right now, there were countless crowds there. A woman was standing in their midst, she was probably around 18 years old, she had long black hair and was wearing a white dress similar to a Japanese kimono. She emitted an aura that was incomparable with the sword in her hand. Even without it, just her face with her pointy nose and sexy pointy chin is enough to make her attract attention wherever she is. Around her, there were about 100 young people lying down, some missing their legs and arms. Young girl, aren't you being too arrogant? At this moment a fat old man came forward. Even though he spoke quite softly, his bulging eyes showed his anger. The woman looked at him but did not show the slightest respect for him as a young generation, she even lifted her chin. She replied, the winner is the king and the loser is the villain. Your Eternal Star clan's younger generations couldn't defeat me, all lost with a single slash of my sword, what qualifications do you have to question my arrogance, you? The old man was taken aback by her harsh words. As an elder of the Eternal Star clan, he was always respected no matter where he was, never had a junior questioned his words. If not for his pride as an elder, he would have slapped her to death. Girl, your attitude is too excessive, you are only a young generation, not an emperor, you do not have the qualifications to boast here. People started to scold the woman too. No one could accept a foreigner insulting their clan in their own territory. I'm not an emperor now, but when I become one, I'm afraid that even the entire Eternal Star clan won't be able to go against me, the woman replied, still full of arrogance. Oh, what makes you dare to say that? Did your master or your Tao protector never tell you who the ancestor of this clan was? At this moment, a majestic voice suddenly resounded, startling all the townspeople. The stars shone 1,000 times brighter, they shone on the figure of a young man who suddenly appeared in the sky. The appearance of this young man was like the birth of the world, many were enlightened just by seeing him. Ancestor. The old man was the first to recognize Qin Yuan, he gasped from being too shocked. But then, he prostrated as if he was worshipping a god. Once knowing that this youth was their ancestor they had never seen, everyone, young and old, quickly followed the old man's movements. They called him crying. This was the Eternal Star ancestor, the pride of the entire star race. In the past few generations, the Eternal Star clan was full of rumors that he was already dying and could no longer fight. It caused some people to no longer be afraid to bother them. Although his current appearance wasn't enough to refute that, being able to see him still raised the spirits of all of them. Qin Yuan is just a keyboard warrior on earth, he works to justify wrong and blame right. Seeing the countless people prostrating to him, he wasn't sure how to react. The reason he appeared was only because the system suddenly gave him a mission. Teach the young lady a lesson, you will get 100 points and 50 charm points. To him, it was equal to an extra week's lifespan. How could he possibly miss it? After all, this was only teaching a young woman a lesson. Chapter 2 Anger. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Qin Yuan's appearance made people think the young woman would be frightened. Even Qin Yuan himself thought so because in his memory, not many were not afraid of him. Every younger generation would salute in front of him or their ancestors would break their legs. However, the young woman turned out to be not afraid at all, she even gave a soft snort. Humph, just a spiritual body, how dare you come with only a spiritual body? Today, I will be cutting up your spiritual body to hone my sword Dao. Qin Yuan. The people. Right after she said that, she suddenly appeared 10 meters in front of Qin Yuan. The sword in her hand shone, causing all the swords in the city to tremble as if to welcome her sword's arrival. It was really surprising because it wasn't even a divine sword or saint sword. This is the supreme innate sword, said the people with sharp eyes. This also made them horrified because this woman had not previously released the power of that sword. Qin Yuan, who was standing in front of her, couldn't help but be stunned. He felt like he had fallen into an illusion. Everything he saw had now turned into swords, including the woman. Each sword wanted to cut his body to 10,000 pieces. This kind of power was like a grain of sand compared to his true strength, but unfortunately, he carried less strength than a grain of sand. It left him powerless in this situation. Supreme innate sword, is it higher than my star sword? Suddenly a refined and elegant voice replied. From the palace, radiated a golden light that illuminated the sky so that people couldn't help but want to prostrate themselves to worship that light. At the same time, the stars in the sky turned into swords, each one aimed at the woman. Star Sword Emperor, the people said. Because he was of this generation and in charge of the current Eternal Star clan, he was known by almost everyone. Before he became a divine emperor, every younger generation that came to challenge the Eternal Star clan was defeated by him. Under the might of the Star Sword Emperor, the woman finally looked pressed. After all, this was the true power that came from the body of the divine emperor itself. She was as small as an ant before this power. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, 2 old figures appeared behind her, each followed by 100 saint fruits. They emitted a holy white light that made people feel reverent. Which is amazing, more than 60 of those saint fruits were integrated with each other through a single root. Each of them emitted a light that was thousands of times brighter. The sky shook from their appearance while the night turned into day. Twin swords of the Holy Sword sect, the people said. They were the 2 generals of the Holy Sword Emperor when he wasn't emperor yet. So this young lady from the sect. No wonder she's acting so rampant here, I believe it's her sect master's orders. While people were talking about them, the 2 old men cupped their fists at Qin Yuan. However, their expressions didn't look like they were apologizing for the woman's actions. Our apologies, Eternal Star Venerable, but we hope that you will help our young lady sharpen her sword Dao through your spiritual body, said one of them, causing Qin Yuan to knit his brows. At this time, the one who was not speaking suddenly slashed a sword into the sky, causing space to split open so that Qin Jian's star swords were blocked. Hurry up, young lady, this is your chance, your sword Dao will definitely become unrivaled after this, said the old man again. The woman nodded, then slashed her sword at Qin Yuan with an indifferent expression. Die to my sword Dao, she shouted. People were wide-eyed at her actions, including Qin Yuan himself. Everything happened so fast, his spiritual body was cut into 10,000 pieces under that single slash of the sword. The old man grabbed the woman's hand. After that, he immediately flew west with the other old man. God damn it, Jian Yang, Jian Ming, do you guys want to die? Immediately after that, loud screams resounded from various places in the Thousand Stars continent, followed by explosion after explosion of aura. From the palace, a figure shrouded in golden light flew to chase them, killing intent emanating from the figure. Bang! 5 golden-colored swords with a star symbol appeared behind the figure, each one seeming capable of slicing through the sky. They are divinities, their shape is erratic, depending on the owner's Tao. A sword with a star symbol, everyone knew who this figure was. Star Sword Emperor, he finally came out. Inside his coffin, Qin Yuan's face turned black. "It's a slap in the face," he said. He couldn't help but remember how the ancestor in the cultivation novel came in majestic ways but was eventually crushed by the protagonist. "Ding, revenge, you will get 400 karma points." "Good." Qin Yuan's eyes shone brightly when he saw the mission. Bang, he kicked the coffin open. When his body broke out of the seal, the spiritual aura on the Thousand Stars continent instantly became 10 times thicker. The stars suddenly fell from the sky, resulting in the most amazing sight ever. Chapter 3 Gigantic Face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This phenomenon did not only occur in the Thousand Stars continent, but also the surrounding continents that were inhabited by other star clans. What happened? The weaklings wondered while the old experts who had seen such a phenomenon held their breath. "A power that can suppress the divinities of emperors," they said. The few saint ancestors who previously wanted to chase after Jian Yang and Jian Ming chose to stop. On the other hand, the two of them had already exited the Thousand Stars continent. They were flying while breaking through time and space so that they could traverse vast distances with a single step. Even so, Qin Jian still continued to follow behind them, his 5 divinities continuing to shine, illuminating every continent he crossed. At this moment, thousands of swords appeared in the sky. They fell on the 2 old men like rain. Even if they were 6th-stage saint ancestors, none of them dared to relax when they saw those swords. Divine emperors were supreme geniuses, plus their divinities were indeed better than saint fruits, so most of them had combat power that was 1 level above saint ancestor. Of course, there were also saint ancestors with cultivation so profound that they did not lose to even the strongest divine emperors. Jian Ming flew higher and turned around while 2 swords full of white light appeared in each of his hands. "New emperor, don't be arrogant," he shouted as he slashed the 2 swords into the sky. Like an ocean being split open, the space in the sky was split in 2 so that all of Qin Jian's swords were sunk within it. "Ha ha ha, kid, you should learn more to fight me." The old man laughed heartily seeing Qin Jian's attack fail miserably. The latter knitted his brows. Chasing the enemy is indeed more difficult than defeating him. He sighed, the golden sword in his hand buzzing as one of his divinities turned into light that entered his sword. When that happened, a gigantic golden star with a boundless divine aura appeared in the sky, like a sun erasing darkness. Jian Yang and Jian Ming's expressions became very serious the moment they saw that. "Supreme Emperor technique," that they said in low voices. This wasn't actually a technique, but a special skill that only divine emperors possessed where they combined their divinity with their attacks. The result is an attack that is many times more powerful. It naturally has its risks. The divinity used for it will dry up, it takes time and a lot of resources to recover it. Before recovering, the power bestowed by that dry divinity would be drastically reduced. Even so, Qin Jian did not hesitate at all. As a divine emperor of this generation, he would be ridiculed by the entire world if he could not catch the junior who insulted his ancestor. "Stop it, Qin Jian, or I'll kill you afterwards." Suddenly, another voice came out of nowhere. Immediately after that the figure of a young man descended from the sky. He had long golden hair and wore a long white robe. The word God was faintly written on his forehead and it was like an eye that could see the secrets of the world. Bang 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 explosions resounded as 6 golden lotuses leaped out of his body. They surrounded him, as if to bestow blessings on him. "An emperor from the God clan, why is he here?" The onlookers were shocked by this young man's sudden appearance. Meanwhile, Qin Jian's eyes became extremely cold. "Shen Jin, what are you doing here?" "Ha ha ha, I was just taking a walk," Shen Jin replied. "But you may not know, the Holy Sword Emperor is half of my teacher." That young woman is his granddaughter, I naturally have to protect her. He raised his hand, causing a lotus rain to fall from the sky. Even though they didn't cause any destruction, the pressure they released made even the paragons watching below find it hard to breathe. Shen Jin, are you sure you want to interfere in this matter? Qin Jian asked. Oh, why should I be afraid? He asked back. Yeah, I'd definitely be scared to death if Eternal Star Venerable was here, he added jokingly. Is that so? Then why don't you kowtow now? Suddenly an answer resounded from the Thousand Stars continent, which was actually quite far from that location. The voice seemed to come from the depths of heaven. The hearts of everyone at that location skipped a beat just because they heard that voice. Right after that, starlight gathered, forming a gigantic face in the sky. It was so large that the sky seemed to be covered by it. The aura it emitted made the air freeze. Even though it was an indistinct face, his pair of eyes made people almost lose consciousness just by looking at them. Bang! All the lotuses that fell from the sky crumbled to ashes. Even the golden lotuses behind Shen Jin trembled, he quickly pulled them back into his body. It also happened to Jian Yang and Jian Ming Saint Fruits. Chapter 4 Clan Members Gather. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The young woman, whose name was Jian Yixue, was completely helpless, like a cockroach in a bottle. Her body was shaking and sweating. But it was quite surprising that she was still able to stand tall and maintain her cocky demeanor. Whoosh! At this moment, a giant palm descended from the sky towards the four people. Jian Yang and Jian Ming were already helpless. As for Shen Jin, although he was still able to move, he preferred to stop his resistance. He knew that if he fought back, there would only be more power aimed at him. Compared to an eternal saint ancestor, a divine emperor with 6 divinities like him was just a child. Even the 7 divinities weren't that much different. A minimum of 8 divinities to be able to dodge the attacks of an eternal saint ancestor. In fact, Qin Yuan is currently still in his palace. He is sitting on the palace throne, looking to the west. His power is too great. While to others the distance between the Thousand Stars continent and their current location was already quite far, to him it was only a few steps ahead of him. He could tear through spacetime and appear directly in front of them. Now all he sent was his power. Bang! The gigantic palm emanating from the condensation of his power slapped them until they were flung into the sea below them. The sea parted so that the land beneath was exposed. Their bodies then crashed into the land. In an instant, their bodies that were previously full of incomparable elegance and aura became full of blood. If he wanted, Qin Yuan could have turned them into ashes, but he was new here and the concept of killing was still something too much for him. Ding! You successfully taught Jian Yixue a lesson. You got 100 karma points and 50 charm points. You managed to get your revenge. You get 400 karma points. 20 karma points are deducted to pay your debt. Karma points. 480, charm point. 10,050, system, open the memories of the Holy Sword sect and the God clan, Qin Yuan ordered. Order accepted. Karma points. 470, MMM. Qin Yuan smiled wryly as he found out about the Sacred Sword sect. This sect was founded by the Holy Sword Emperor, an emperor with 9 divinities. He was renowned for his peerless combat prowess, having even fought eternal saint ancestors several times and came back with a slight wound. What was even more amazing was that he was from a lower realm. When he came to the divine world, he was already a transcendent while most people were only in the sage realm when they arrived in the divine world. He was notoriously wild and offended many young masters of the great clans. And he was also ruthless, so he didn't care even if the opponent was a beautiful woman. If he can kill, he will kill them. Many wanted to kill him, but they had to hold back because he was supported by an eternal saint ancestor. On one occasion, he injured a woman whose father was not afraid of his supporter. The result was naturally revenge from the woman's father. That father was Qin Yuan himself. Yes, here he has a daughter. From then on, the Holy Sword Emperor held a grudge against Qin Yuan. Yeah, things like this can't be avoided by anyone at the pinnacle of life. Qin Yuan smiled wryly. And the God clan. Qin Yuan became serious when he thought of this clan. Even the original Eternal Star Ancestor was quite afraid of this clan. They were recognized as the strongest of all the clans in the divine world. It was because they had two great emperors or emperors with 10 divinities. One of them is the goddess of life. They also had one eternal saint ancestor. I'd better avoid conflict with them for now. He was still quite rational. If it was only one great emperor, he would not be too worried, but 2 plus 1 eternal saint ancestor, even other great emperors would prefer to be silent. After that, he pulled the Jian trio's body into the palace and left Shen Jin's body. Soon the 3 of them appeared in front of him. They had passed out by now. At the same time, figure after figure appeared in that palace hall, each no weaker than Jian Yang and Jian Ming. Even among saint ancestors, only the 6th stage and above had the qualifications to meet Qin Yuan. In this clan, there were only 8, 5 at the 6th stage, 2 at the 7th stage, and 1 at the 8th stage. Unfortunately no one was at the 9th stage. Qin Jian appeared after them, he saluted each one of them as the youngest. He wasn't alone, he appeared with a middle-aged man with a sizable build. His name was Qin Lei, a 7th stage divine emperor. Husband, why did you come out? Right after they appeared, suddenly there was a charming voice like the chirping of birds. It was hard for anyone to calm down when they heard this voice. Qin Yuan himself was shivering, this was something he was really at a loss for how to react. He didn't have many women, but there were still a few. Most have died, including the mother of his daughter, while the surviving ones are in self-isolation. But there's one that's still hanging around. Chapter 5A9. Tailed Fox. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A woman looking to be in her late 20s, 180 centimeters tall, in a short black skirt then entered the hall. She had long, slightly curly red hair, a pair of pink eyes, rosy red lips, and snow-white skin. With high heels made of glass, her 2 long legs seemed to sway as she walked, causing her round and sexy ass to sway as well. Qin Yuan had always thought the writers of cultivation novels had overestimated the women in their novels, but now he knew that it was real. A beauty like this could practically cause 2 emperors to fight to the death. She wasn't from the star race, but a 9-tailed fox, renowned as a temptress that could kill. Paying no heed to anyone else, she walked straight towards Qin Yuan. The latter was still silent as he pondered whether to regard this woman as his own wife or someone else. However, that thought quickly vanished as she suddenly sat down on his thigh. An unbearable sensation immediately spread throughout his body as he felt her soft butt. Su Mei. He subconsciously called out her name while fixing his expression. He also held her waist with both hands. It was his first time holding a woman's waist, so he was very nervous, but he needed to do so that Su Mei wouldn't notice the change. Husband, has your lifespan problem been resolved? Su Mei asked while holding his face. She also brought her face close to his so that the fragrant scent of her breath flowed through his body as he breathed. It turned out to be as refreshing as orange juice. The male saint ancestors were silent when they saw Su Mei's actions, some were looking in other directions, but the women, of whom there were 3, looked jealous. Qin Yuan cleared his throat as he patted Su Mei's waist. Calm down, I'll explain, he said. Currently, all of the saint ancestors, Qin Jian, and Qin Lei were staring at him. Those who were here knew of his condition, so his actions had clearly confused them. You guys probably have a lot of questions, he told them. But for a more detailed explanation, I can't say. In essence, I can come out whenever I want. In the next few days, I will also help Qin Jian rob the 6th divinity. Is that true, big brother? Asked a 7th stage saint ancestor. He was a middle-aged man. His name is Qin Mu, Qin Yuan's younger cousin. Before this, he used to run rampantly using his reputation. Several divine emperors wanted to kill him, so he was among the ones who feared Qin Yuan's death the most. The original Qin Yuan didn't like him, but he never restricted his actions either. He answered slightly indifferently. I heard some sects have taken over our minds, you'll have to take them again later. Yes, I will, brother, replied Qin Mu. At this moment, Qin Hu, the 8th stage Saint Ancestor, who was a muscular old man said, Yuan, I'm not sure how you handle your problem, but it's a good thing for our clan. However, I advise you not to act too flashy just yet. This old man was older than Qin Yuan himself and even mentored him a lot when he was young, so was able to call out his name. Don't worry, Uncle Hu. I know what I'm doing, Qin Yuan replied. Of course, the meaning of the word flashy from Qin Hu is not really not doing something. For people at his level, only dealing with great emperors and eternal saint ancestors, was considered a flashy act. Even dealing with the Holy Sword Emperor didn't fall into that category. Rumors that he was not inferior to the eternal saint ancestors were just bullshit in the eyes of the original Qin Yuan. It was true that he was able to leave with a few injuries, but that was only because he left too soon. In the eyes of the eternal saint ancestors, he was only a person who was able to escape from them due to some special technique. By the way, he looked at the Jian trio who were fainting. Imprison them, tell the Holy Sword Emperor to pay the price if he wants them intact. I'll take care of them, brother, Qin Mu replied. He bound their bodies before stuffing them into his space artifact. Alright everyone, now that you know my husband is fine, please leave immediately, I also want to talk to him. Su Mei suddenly said. She was not a member of the Eternal Star clan, but her strength and background were not weak at all. Those saint ancestors and divine emperors could only leave after she ordered them to. Qin Yuan actually also wanted her to leave because he wasn't prepared at all. Husband, are you really okay now? She asked again once they were the only ones in the hall. Qin Yuan nodded. I hope you're not lying. Do you know how worried I've been every day these past few years? She pouted slightly while her face became closer to his. By the way, you seem to be getting a little more charming. I can see it. Right after she said that, her lips suddenly kissed his. Because she was leaning forward, so her breasts pressed against his chest. 3 sensations at a time. Qin Yuan felt his soul escaping from his body. He knew he would be in trouble if he continued there. Even if he wanted to eat this fox, he needed to prepare first. Without a second thought, he left in a direct way of tearing spacetime. Su Mei's bottom fell onto the throne because Qin Yuan suddenly disappeared. She was stunned and confused. The Thousand Stars continent and the surrounding continents belonged to the star territory. It was vast, but it was only a small part of the divine world. To the north of the territory, there was a spider web-like array of continents where at the center was a truly enormous continent, many times larger than the Thousand Stars continent. It was called the human continent because the entire continent was dominated by the human race. The south of this continent was a desert region that was extremely hot and arid yet filled with spiritual aura. Qin Yuan appeared here, something he himself had not expected. In terms of breaking through time and space, the eternal saint ancestor whose cultivation had already reached perfection was indeed far beyond the other saint ancestors. With a single step, he then appeared in a large city, filled with tall buildings where the people wore white robes and turbans on their heads. The hot air here was a little less pleasant for Qin Yuan. But he remained silent. Apart from being curious, it was also because he sensed 2 auras heading towards him from a very far away place. The reason he could sense these 2 auras was because they were already very familiar with them. One was his daughter's aura and the other was his disciple's aura. They were the other 2 divine emperors of the Eternal Star clan. For most of the time, they had always wandered throughout the divine world. Even when they returned, they usually only sent their spiritual bodies. Chapter 6 The Twin Goddess of the Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Yuan entered a restaurant that sold a variety of desert specialties. He sat in a corner. "By the way, system, can Su Mei be considered my wife?" he asked. "I know what's confusing you, it's nothing to think about since you and the eternal star ancestor are one. Everything he has is yours." "What do you mean?" Qin Yuan barely understood the meaning of System's words. "You can think of yourself as the memory-lost eternal star ancestor. Don't tell me I was reincarnated a long time ago, when the eternal star ancestor was born." Qin Yuan thought it made more sense. Feeling his power now, he thought that it only took a snort to destroy the earth. How can a small creature on earth take over this creature's body? It is illogical. He more believed he was the eternal star ancestor himself. "I don't know, but that's one acceptable theory." "Wait, so you don't know anything either?" "All I know is that I'm a system that helps you, nothing more. All kinds of information can only be obtained from yourself." "I see. Ah, but that doesn't really matter either. I like this life more than my previous life." "I'll find out about that later." At this time, a maid came. She has rabbit ears and tail, so she looks cute with her not very tall body. "What would you like to order, sir?" she asked with a very friendly smile. Even though Qin Yuan did not emit any aura, he was like an immortal in that due to his extremely conspicuous appearance. And the maid knew he wasn't simple because she only noticed his extraordinary appearance as she approached. From afar, he looked normal. Qin Yuan looked at the menu list for a while but wasn't sure which one was the best, so he replied, "Please prepare all of your best dishes." Apparently, someone had to pay first, so he took out one Saint Jade, which was like a grain of sand to him but made the maid's eyes widen. "Sir, this is too much," she said. "Then the rest is for you," Qin Yuan replied without looking at her again. The maid was stunned and finally smiled. "Thank you, sir." She bowed before walking away. Qin Yuan looked at the city center where there was a palace. Far below that palace, he sensed the aura of an saint ancestor, who probably had less than 50 saint fruits. It was a long way from the first stage, but he was able to own such a large city. He seems small in my eyes, but who knows how much hardship he went through before reaching his current level. Qin Yuan sighed. The divine world is full of living beings. Saint ancestors might be found everywhere, but most living things were just weak creatures. Like that maid, for example, her cultivation was only in the sage realm. Moments after that, the sky above the city in the surrounding area suddenly darkened for an instant, shocking all beings, including the paragons and ancestors. But who would have guessed that it was caused by the appearance of two women in black dresses? While people were still busy searching for the cause, they had already appeared right in front of Qin Yuan. If Su Mei was a vixen that could overheat men, then these two women were the cold night sky. They are about 177 centimeters tall with hair that reaches their knees. Their dresses almost cover their entire figure but do not completely hide their curves, resulting in a demure and graceful style. Their calm and cold eyes would make any man not dare to be presumptuous towards them. One of them had white hair and a facial structure similar to Qin Yuan's with a small mole under her left eye. She was his daughter. Her name was Qin Wuxin and her title was Goddess of the Dark Star. The other one, on the other hand, had black hair with straight bangs covering his forehead and a pair of small black wings on her back. Behind her bangs, Qin Yuan's heavenly eyes could see the word devil written on it. Yes, she wasn't a member of the Eternal Star clan, but someone from the Devil clan. Because she was his personal disciple, whom he taught since young, so her main status was still a member of the Eternal Star clan. Her name was Yi Shui while her title was Goddess of Dark Snow. What is quite surprising about these two women is that their personalities and interests are so similar that they are similar in every way. People even referred to them as the twin goddess of the night. Their strength was so profound and their combination one of the most terrifying that very few would dare to confront them head-on. "It's good to see your real bodies are still here," said Qin Yuan with a sigh, because before this he had always been worried that they would enter dangerous places to save his life. "Father, you're not lying, are you?" asked his daughter with narrowed eyes. Her tone was a bit cold even when she spoke to him. Qin Yuan, who was fully prepared, couldn't help but shiver slightly at hearing the title father to him, and it was from a supreme woman, who had the title of goddess. He cleared his throat to cover his awkwardness. "Please sit down first, it's very rare that we see each other in person since I sealed my body, don't we need to celebrate?" he said. Qin Wuxin nodded lightly before sitting down while Yi Shui spoke after she sat down. "Master, I think there is no greater miracle than being able to overcome the problem of lifespan just by living in a coffin." Her eyes became sharper as she said that. She looked at him from head to toe. "Have you made any particular breakthrough?" she asked. Questions like this could generate suspicion if he answered incorrectly, so Qin Yuan didn't answer, he just smiled, pretending to be mysterious. The maid finally returned with many trays of food. She opened her small mouth in surprise when she saw these two figures who suddenly appeared were women of unimaginable beauty. "Goddesses," she said absent-mindedly. Her voice caused Qin Wuxin to look at her with her cold eyes so much that she almost fell and dropped the few trays she was carrying. Before the trays fell, Qin Yuan used his strength to move them onto the table. "Wuxin, don't scare her," he said. "This is his daughter's vice. She dislikes weak creatures and often intimidates them when she is bothered by their presence. Go." Yi Shui then said to the maid in a slightly cold voice. She wasn't as bad as his daughter because she had a difficult past before becoming his disciple, but her power and the devil clan's blood flowing through her still made her unfriendly to weak creatures. The maid put down the trays still in her hands in a hurry before leaving at a brisk pace. Chapter 7 Robbing the Ninth Divinity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Far to the west, there was a continent called the Sword Continent, a continent where all cultivators walked the path of the sword. Any race can live on this continent, all get equal rights as long as they use the sword. Those who don't wield a sword, on the other hand, will be expelled from this continent. This kind of rule was indeed an exaggeration, but no one dared to protest because it was made by the sword-hearted great emperor, an emperor with 10 divinities. He is a supreme swordsman, no one is better at wielding a sword than him. It is said that he can use all sword techniques with just one glance. In the east of this continent, right beside a white beach, there were countless swords stuck in the ground, some small, and some large enough to pierce the clouds. On the bodies of the large swords, there were pavilions with people practicing swordsmanship. This is the Holy Sword Sect. On the top of one of the tallest swords sat 4 men. They drank wine while chatting happily, discussing the various events happening in the divine world. "Holy Sword, your granddaughter is truly extraordinary. Not only is her sword technique unmatched among the younger generation, her temperament is also sharp as a sword," said an old man smoking a cigar to a handsome young man with the word sword written on his forehead. The word wasn't something natural like the god and devil clans had, it was something he wrote himself in ink that was said to be indelible. The youth who was the Holy Sword Emperor smiled at the old man's praise. "But anyway, we know that you don't have a wife and children, how do you suddenly have a granddaughter?" asked a middle-aged man with scales under his ears. "Holy Sword, please don't hide it if you have a lover," another young man added. His head was bald with black spots on it and he wore the robes of a monk. Surprisingly enough, because he even drank wine and didn't speak as politely as the other monks. "I just don't have a wife here," the Holy Sword Emperor replied. "Back when I was in the lower realm, I had a wife and child, after so many years, my descendants filled that realm. And yeah, one finally ascended to the divine world, I sensed her aura, so I picked her up. I also didn't expect her talent to be so extraordinary." "Oh, then that means she's a granddaughter after thousands of generations," said the cigar-smoking old man with a smile. "The talent is what matters," the Holy Sword Emperor replied. When he was about to smile, he suddenly froze while his eyes narrowed. "What is wrong?" the old man quickly asked. The Holy Sword Emperor snapped his fingers, causing 3 lights to appear that each entered the heads of the 3 men. Immediately after that their expressions became serious. Eternal Star Ancestor stopped sealing his body. What exactly happened? They started to wonder. The old man looked at the Holy Sword Emperor again and asked, "Are you going to pay to save your granddaughter and generals?" "I want to see him personally first," the Holy Sword Emperor replied. He stood up before stepping to the west of the continent. The 3 men looked at each other. "Looks like you will be challenging the Eternal Star Ancestor again," the middle-aged man said. "He's really stubborn." The monk shook his head. "But let's help him if he really wants to attack," he added. "It's not a bad thing to fight an Eternal Saint Ancestor to sharpen my old bones." The old man agreed without any consideration. The middle-aged man also nodded. "I need something extremely stressful if I want my dragon blood to break through to the 9th stage." In the restaurant, Qin Yuan couldn't help but praise the dishes he ate. He thought he would eat like crazy if not for the existence of the 2 women in front of him. To be honest, he wished they would leave soon so he could act freely. Meanwhile, the rabbit-eared maid left the restaurant with hasty steps. She went to an academy area. She entered one of the classes at the academy and then came out with a boy who looked to be 13 years old. The boy also has rabbit ears and tail, probably her younger brother. Qin Yuan watched them from afar and listened to their conversation. As it turned out, they wanted to move to a certain region of the continent that was inhabited by a lot of human beasts because only there could they thrive without experiencing discrimination. Thinking of their struggle made him sigh again. He could go anywhere on the continent by traversing time and space, but a sage like that maid would spend years traveling from region to region. And it also costs a lot. Feeling sorry for her, he ended up using a bit of his strength to create a shield on his body and the boy's body. Although he could have sent them straight to their destination, letting them go alone was better to hone them. "Father!" Qin Wuxin suddenly called out to him. Qin Yuan turned his gaze to her. "Actually, we were planning to rob the 9th divinity in this generation if nothing bad happened." "Are you sure?" Qin Yuan was shocked as he looked at his daughter and disciple. They had already possessed 8 divinities since their own generation, and dozens of generations had passed until now. Such is the cultivation of the heavens path. In their generation, divine emperors had mostly reached their highest limit. Of course, with the accumulation of practice, that highest limit could still be breached. However, unlike saint ancestors, breaking through limits meant breaking through cultivation. Divine emperors had a hard time breaking through because robbing divinity in the next generation was extremely difficult and the risk of death was also enormous. "Our limit cannot increase anymore. Robbing the 9th divinity is the only solution we believe in," Yi Shui replied. Qin Yuan was silent for a while before finally nodding. "Since that's what you guys believe, I can only support you. Ding, help your daughter to rob the 9th divinity, you will get 5,000 karma points and 2,500 charm points. Help your disciple to rob the 9th divinity, you will get 5,000 karma points and 2,500 charm points." The 2 missions did not make Qin Yuan blink. He drank a cup of wine and enjoyed it. After he finished, his daughter suddenly furrowed her brows. She was also slightly pouting. For a cold woman like her to show such an expression, something must have really bothered her. "Husband, I thought, where did you go? It turns out that you met your daughter and disciple." A charming voice echoed before a red-haired figure appeared. Who else but Su Mei? She had changed clothes, now wearing a very glamorous red dress. "Why are you here?" Qin Wuxin immediately looked at her with cold eyes. The enmity of a daughter and her stepmother. Qin Yuan couldn't help but feel dizzy again. Chapter 8 Holy Sword Emperor's Arrival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "Why can't I come here when my husband is here?" Su Mei replied with pouting lips. Qin Wuxin did not respond. She responded by showing her displeasure at her existence. Yi Shui then grabbed her hand. "Never mind, Sister Wu, let's go, she said. Qin Wuxin nodded. She stood up from her chair and said, Father, we are going to Snow Land, I will call you later. After that, she immediately stepped into the sky, disappearing with Yi Shui. The sky darkened again for an instant as they tore through spacetime. Right after they left, Su Mei sat on Qin Yuan's thighs and put both her hands on his chest. With a pouting mouth, she said, My husband, look at them, they continue to think of me as an outsider. Qin Yuan didn't actually know the cause of their conflict, and so far he had never tried to find out, nor did he take it seriously, so he wasn't sure how to answer. In the end, he patted her on the waist. Don't be sad, that's what family is, full of drama, he said to comfort her. After the chat with System, he thought he had now accepted his new identity, including accepting everything that the identity had. Why refuse when it's all a good thing? Anyway, let's go for a walk. Qin Yuan stood up while lifting Su Mei's waist for her to stand up too. She continues to cling to him and rests her shoulder on his as they exit the restaurant. Qin Yuan naturally didn't let go of the opportunity, he hugged her waist in response. The desert was definitely not a suitable place to stroll with Su Mei, so Qin Yuan went to the east of the continent. This is a beautiful land, full of flowers everywhere. They stopped beside a lake whose water was as clear as glass so that the fish in it could be seen clearly. There was no one here because this was a very remote place, in the middle of a forest full of beasts, even a paragon might die if he tried to go to this place. Su Mei looked satisfied as she looked at the surrounding scenery. She then faced him. They were almost the same height because she was wearing high heels, so he could see her face clearly. No matter how closely he looked at her face, he didn't find the slightest flaw, every part looked beautiful and charming. Husband, she said with her lips curved like a bow. At the same time, she wrapped her arms around his neck so that her lips became closer to him. The atmosphere froze, time seemed to stop the moment their gazes met. Husband, do you think I didn't notice that there was a change in you, said Su Mei. Her words somehow didn't leave Qin Yuan stunned, he just kept quiet. One of Su Mei's hands touched his face as she continued, I don't care if there is anything else in you, as long as the memories of me are in your heart, you will always be my husband. Her face became closer after she said that. Even though she didn't take the initiative to kiss him, Qin Yuan knew she was waiting for him to do it first. In a situation like this, it was too difficult to stop. He kissed her without thinking. Before it was just a moment, but this time he could feel her lips clearly. They were soft and warm, making Qin Yuan want more after tasting a bit. His hands quickly moved to hug her waist, he then pulled her body into his embrace while she responded by pressing her breasts against his chest. At first glance, they look like a young couple who have just confessed their love and now want to share their feelings for each other. There is no concept of out of breath for them. As Qin Yuan stuck out his tongue, Su Mei responded by opening her mouth so that his tongue went into her mouth. Inside her mouth, her tongue greeted his warmly, making his tongue move more wildly. Over time, he felt as if his body was being burned by fire, so his hands couldn't rest just on Su Mei's waist. One of his hands moved down to touch her soft ass. He couldn't help but grope at it. His other hand, on the other hand, moved towards her chest. Su Mei, who knew what he wanted, suddenly grabbed his hand. However, she didn't do that to stop him, instead, she helped lead his hand into the open part of her dress. Through it, his hand could directly touch her skin. If he pushed his hand slightly upwards, it would immediately meet her breasts, which must be very beautiful just by looking at their cleavage. Before he even moved his hand, Su Mei had already pushed his hand up. Immediately his fingers entered between the gaps of her bra so that his palm managed to reach one of her breasts without any cloth in the way. It was big and round, without even pressing it, he could feel its suppleness. Their kiss broke after that while Su Mei looked at him with anticipation. He naturally fulfilled her wish. Gently, he pressed against the breasts he was holding, causing Su Mei to let out a soft yet long moan. The sensation was completely indescribable, after one time, he began to press even harder so that Su Mei's entire body trembled. After a few times, even her breath started to pant. "You seem more aggressive now," she said in a flirtatious tone. Qin Yuan cleared his throat. He was also a bit embarrassed that he was starting to lose control. Who knows how crazy he will become once he strips her. Of course, he wouldn't do that here. "Anyway, let's go back. The Holy Sword Emperor might cause trouble once he hears what happened," said Qin Yuan. Su Mei nodded. She smoothed her dress before leaving with him. Qin Yuan had just guessed, but halfway through, he suddenly received a message from Qin Hu. It was the message that made him pierce through spacetime into his palace head. On. Boom. When he arrived, he heard an explosion in the sky. On the west side of the continent, two figures were fighting. One was a very large dragon. It had 8 wings with purple scales all over its body. As it roared, its mouth spewed out an ocean that seemed to be able to submerge a continent. The other, on the other hand, was Qin Hu. He was not wearing a shirt, his body became bigger with a star on his chest. The sky rumbled as he and the dragon clashed blows. Purple Ocean Dragon, 8th Stage Divine Beast. Qin Yuan recognized the dragon's identity. Unlike other creatures, beast races with divine bloodlines such as the dragon, phoenix, and various other divine beast clans including the 9-tailed fox did not cultivate in the saint path or heaven path. The source of their power was their bloodline, so all they needed to do was evolve it. On the east side, there is also a fight. One of them was Qin Lei. With a spear, he attacked a monk who was sitting cross-legged drinking wine. The directionless monk. An 8th stage saint ancestor. Qin Yuan also recognized the identity of the monk. "Eternal Star, you have finally appeared." At this moment, a cold voice resounded in the sky before two figures appeared. One young man and one old man. The young man had the 9 golden swords following behind him. They didn't emit any light, but their presence had already made the world seem to have lost all its contents. The old man was no less terrifying. 96 of his saint fruits had been integrated so that his aura made every living thing that looked at him feel as small as an ant. "Holy Sword Emperor, Smoke Ancestor, it seems that you guys have forgotten who I am," Qin Yuan said in a cold tone as he looked at them. "You who can only lock yourself in a coffin, do you think you are worthy of my memory?" The Holy Sword Emperor replied. His arrogance was immediately apparent as he spoke. Hearing his words, Su Mei, who was standing beside Qin Yuan, snorted coldly. "Holy Sword, how presumptuous you are. You think no one can beat you among the 9th stage," she said. After that, she lunged into the air. In an instant, her figure turned into a fox with 9 tails. She has pink feathers while her back has a pair of wings. Whoosh! Smoke Ancestor appeared in front of him. "Ha ha ha, 9-tailed fox queen, I'm enough to fight you," he said. "Then die." Su Mei replied. Her 9 tails swung at the old man. At the same time, Qin Yuan had already appeared in front of the Holy Sword Emperor. Even though he was full of arrogance, being in front of him still made him take a step back while a sword appeared in each of his hands. "You know, if you don't run now, you'll probably die after a dozen attacks from me," Qin Yuan said. Chapter 9 From the Sword-Hearted Great Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Holy Sword Emperor looked intimidated by his words. He gritted his teeth before replying, "Are you sure you can unleash a dozen moves at full power?" "Why not? Do I look like an old man who has no strength anymore?" Qin Yuan answered with a question. Using his full power was indeed dangerous for him as it could also drain his lifespan. But he can buy it again from the system. And he had nothing to lose because of the missions the system gave him. Looking at the list of missions that appeared, his smile grew wider. "Wound the Holy Sword Emperor, you will get 500 karma points and 250 charm points. The mission will stop after 10 times. Kill or capture the Holy Sword Emperor, you will get 10,000 karma points and 5,000 charm points. Kill or capture the Purple Ocean Dragon, you will get 2,000 karma points and 1,000 charm points. Kill or capture the Directionless Monk, you will get 2,000 karma points and 1,000 charm points. Kill or capture the Smoke Ancestor, you will get 5,000 karma points and 2,500 charm points. The Holy Sword Emperor thought his smile was because he was contemplating a plan to capture him. He took another step back and took a deep breath. Eternal Star, we can stop as long as you return my granddaughter and my 2 generals, he said. Ha ha ha, that's ridiculous. Qin Yuan laughed. Do you think you have the qualifications to say that? Oh, I remember you got something from the Immortal Ghost Cave, give it to me, I will return them to you. Qin Yuan only said that casually because someone had said it to him. What it was, he wasn't sure either. But somehow the Holy Sword Emperor's expression became extremely cold. Good, Eternal Star, then let me see your strength, please show the world whether you still deserve to be feared. Bang bang bang. The 9 swords behind him immediately emitted golden light. The sky was torn apart while the stars disappeared. They released a shockwave that cracked the 1,000 Stars continent slightly. Qin Hu, Qin Lei, the Purple Ocean Dragon, the Directionless Monk, they were all pushed quite far away by the shockwave. Only Su Mei and the Smoke Ancestor were able to remain in place. Too strong, it might be difficult to find an opponent equal to him in the 9th stage, said the people watching. In the eyes of most people, the power of the Holy Sword Emperor was a supreme power that could destroy anything, invincible anywhere. However, Qin Yuan only smiled as he looked at his 9 divinities. 9 divinities, or 99, integrated saint fruits, they are strong, almost reaching the peak. But for me who is at the peak, everything remains at the bottom. Whoosh! 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 One by one, his saint fruits jumped out, every single one that came out creating explosions in all locations as if the sky was collapsing. When they all appeared, Qin Yuan's eyes flashed a white light, they seemed to be able to illuminate and see every secret of the world. He waved his hand to the sky. The sky that had become day due to the light of the Holy Sword Emperor's divinities became night again. And this time it was a night where the stars were like grains of beach sand, they covered the sky so it disappeared. The Holy Sword Emperor's face immediately twitched. In an instant, he began to look doubtful. What? Are you here just for show? Qin Yuan asked as he appeared in front of him. Hastily, the Holy Sword Emperor slashed his 2 swords at him, they were filled with golden light. However, he only responded by sending out his fist. Bang! The 2 swords were nearly knocked out of the Holy Sword Emperor's hands while he himself was flung thousands of kilometers back. His hand that was holding the hilt of the sword was even torn apart. Ding! You hurt the Holy Sword Emperor once, you gain 500 karma points and 250 charm points. Karma points. 970, charm points. 10,300, ding, you can unlock all your memories with 500 karma points. Oh. The last message piqued Qin Yuan's interest, but he decided to put it off for now. He then appeared again in front of the Holy Sword Emperor and sent his fist out again. This time, he dodged in a way through space-time, appearing far away from the 1,000 Stars continent. Qin Yuan didn't chase after him because he still didn't look like he wanted to run away. He turned his gaze away from her to glance at the Directionless Monk and the Purple Ocean Dragon. Both of them shivered as soon as they received his gaze. Holy Sword, quickly do that! The Purple Ocean Dragon shouted. The Holy Sword Emperor took a deep breath. His chest suddenly glowed, causing his clothes to tear. A sword symbol appeared on his chest, it buzzed, as if summoning all the swords. And at this time, swords suddenly came from various directions, from the 1,000 Stars continent and other continents throughout the star territory. They can't be counted with numbers anymore because there are too many. Damn my sword, give me back my sword. Many screamed at the loss of their swords, including the weaker ancestors. What exactly is this technique? How can it summon all the swords in the star territory? People wonder. Those who don't use swords are grateful that they haven't lost their weapons. System, give me information about the technique and use my remaining karma points for my lifespan, Qin Yuan said at the same time. This time, he was really serious. Order accepted. Your 5 karma points are used to unlock information about the technique the Holy Sword Emperor uses. Your 965 karma points are used for your lifespan, they are equivalent to 65 days of lifespan. Karma points. 0, age. 95 days before death. Qin Yuan took a deep breath while his eyes became extremely cold. He looked west. In a low voice he said, Sword. Hearted Great Emperor, do you also intend to become my enemy? No one could hear the voice, but it pierced through spacetime, reaching the Sword Continent. Right after that, Qin Yuan received a response from a strange voice, not sounding like a male or female voice, but like the hum of a sword. This is only my reward for his contribution to the way of the sword. I have no business with you. But it's fine if you think I'm targeting you. Qin Yuan. Chapter 10 When easily you are listening at novelfull.audio. Hahaha, Eternal Star, you think everyone is afraid of you. The Holy Sword Emperor laughed, he seemed to have managed to hear his voice. Qin Yuan looked at him again and said, Holy Sword, once you release that attack, you will probably run out of energy and I can catch you. Are you ready for that? Are you worried? Asked the Holy Sword Emperor. I'm just reminding you. Even though you're an irreverent man, you're still a genius of the way of the sword, wouldn't it be a pity if you were captured by me? Capture me. Yeah, say that again if you're still alive after this. The Holy Sword Emperor seemed to become more convinced that he was worried because of his advice telling him to stop. Unfortunately he didn't know he was also laughing inwardly. Bang bang bang. Every sword that came later exploded while the Holy Sword Emperor's chest was torn apart. Inside his chest, there was currently a small sword, it was extremely small and didn't even emit any light at all, as if it was just an ordinary iron sword. However, the space around the sword immediately shattered after it appeared as if space was unable to contain its existence. This was undoubtedly the most dangerous sword technique, considered one of the 3 strongest attack techniques. Its name is the Sword Heart. The Holy Sword Emperor naturally couldn't use this technique, but the Sword-Hearted Great Emperor implanted it in his body so that he could release it once. Its current strength might not be as great as when the Great Sword-Hearted Great Emperor released it personally, but it was still extremely dangerous for Qin Yuan, especially with his limited lifespan. Swish. The sword finally moved. Time and space became extremely slow as it moved, even Qin Yuan himself was affected. Ordinary people are unable to move at this time. On the other hand, the sword was like light, its speed was simply unimaginable. Qin Yuan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened his eyes again, in just an instant, before the sword could reach him, all the starlight in the sky gathered in front of him, creating a shield that protected his body. It's just a light shield, but the people who saw it sighed. Eternal Starlight, the strongest defensive technique of the Eternal Star Ancestor, it is said that no technique has yet been able to penetrate it with a single strike, said the people who recognized the light shield. Eternal Star Ancestor can use it, maybe it's not full power, but it means that his lifespan is not as bad as people say. He will die if he uses this technique if his lifespan is only a few days left. The Holy Sword Emperor knew that. Hence, his expression instantly became extremely ugly. Bang! The sword hit Qin Yuan's shield. The resulting shockwave emptied the sky to the point where the stars disappeared even though the sky remained dark. In fact, quite a number of continents were thrown from their original position. It was only a brief crash, but the apocalypse for countless living beings. Qin Yuan stared at the sword that had almost pierced through his shield. He sighed as he looked at the system notification. Your lifespan is reduced by 80 days. Age: 15 days before death. The injuries to his cultivation drained his vitality every time he used it. Therefore, using too much strength made his lifespan easily drastically reduced. He quickly looked at the Holy Sword Emperor. He just opened his mouth, probably wanting to ask the other three for help. Unfortunately, Qin Yuan had already appeared in front of him. You. He was stunned. Brat, you have angered this old man, Qin Yuan said. Bang! He slapped his face until his teeth fell out of his mouth. One slap was naturally not enough. 2, 3, 4, 9. He slapped him 9 times. Each slap not only sent his teeth knocked out, it also broke his bones, causing him to cough up blood. A divine emperor with 9 divinities being treated like that was undoubtedly a shame that could no longer be covered up. Many experts were watching from afar with their heavenly eyes. They might as well show the battle scenes to their juniors, so what was happening now was basically watched by countless eyes. Qin Yuan sealed his power before sending his body into his artifact space. Ding! You injure the Holy Sword Emperor 9 times, you gain 4,500 karma points and 2,250 charm points. Karma points. 4,500, charm points. 12,550, ding, you successfully capture the Holy Sword Emperor, you gain 10,000 karma points and 5,000 charm points. Karma points. 14,500, charm points. 17,550, Qin Yuan smiled again seeing all the points. At the same time, he heard many women say, the Eternal Star Ancestor is really very handsome, if only I could be his servant. Are these charm points really that influential? Qin Yuan asked the system. Current limit is 100,000, maybe you can conquer every woman with that. Haha. Qin Yuan laughed lightly. However, when your charm points reach 20,000 points, the amount you will earn will only be 1/3 of the karma points you earned. Of course, it also depends on whether the mission you accept rewards you with charm points. Oh, that wasn't easy. By the way, please open all my memories. Order accepted. 500 karma points are used to unlock all memories. Karma points. 14,000, MMM. The incoming information was truly overwhelming. Qin Yuan felt his head throb. But it made him even more serious when he realized the divine world was full of mysteries that had not been solved until now. Like the immortal Ghost Cave, it was one of those ancient places that was said to have existed since the beginning of the divine world. Phew. Qin Yuan sighed before staring at the 3 figures who were now fleeing in 3 different directions. Ancestor Smoke was the fastest, he had almost disappeared. However, the Purple Ocean Dragon and the Directionless Monk were still within his reach. Now I suddenly realize, I don't have a mount and a spiritual advisor. Both actually have a strong background. As the name suggests, the Purple Ocean Dragon from the dragon race. However, the good thing was that the dragon race wasn't a single clan like the God clan and Devil clan. Although their numbers are also few, they are separated because most dragons live solitary lives. There were almost no factions within their race. The Directionless Monk on the other hand, comes from the Buddhist Holy Land. However, he was considered an unfilial monk, no longer allowed to live in the Buddhist Holy Land. Whoosh! Qin Yuan then flew towards the Purple Ocean Dragon at full speed. This was an 8th stage divine beast, he couldn't catch him like he caught Shinjin. Eternal Star Venerable, please spare me. Seeing him following him, the dragon immediately pleaded with him. Qin Yuan was like a grain of sand on the beach compared to his large body, so his pleas sounded amusing to onlookers. Of course, no one dared to laugh at him because this little creature was an eternal saint ancestor. A lizard shouldn't enter a tiger's den, Qin Yuan replied. Whoosh! He sent his fist to his back. Even before his fist hit his back, he was already suppressed so that his massive body became slightly bent. Bang! The sound of countless bones cracking resounded, making people horrified as the dragon crashed into the ground. He passed out immediately after that, which was pretty funny. Even though he previously fought Qin Hu, he was far superior, so his strength should still be quite a lot. Qin Yuan didn't think about why he had fainted, he grabbed his body and sent it to his space artifact. Ding, you caught the purple ocean dragon, you got 2,000 karma points and 1,000 charm points. Karma points. 16,000, charm point. 18,550, without pausing for a moment, he flew towards the directionless monk. But surprisingly enough, this monk suddenly stopped. As soon as Qin Yuan appeared in front of him, he even kowtowed. This evil little monk admits his guilt, Your Excellency, I am ready to accept all kinds of punishment, he said. People shook their heads at his actions. There's no point in trying to run either, they said. He was the weakest of all, Qin Yuan didn't need much effort if he really wanted to catch him. You know good things, Qin Yuan said to him. Despite saying that, he still slapped his face, then sent his body into his space artifact. Ding, you successfully capture the directionless monk, you gain 2,000 karma points and 1,000 charm points. Karma points. 18,000, charm points. 19,550. In the north of the human continent, among the many continents in the human territory, there was a continent that was completely ruled by an empire called the Autumn Empire. This was an empire founded by a ninth-stage divine emperor, so its reputation in the human territory was unquestionable. Even in that vast territory, it was one of the 5 strongest factions. Merely, that was in the past, as the emperor who founded this empire had long since disappeared. It was able to endure because of his quite extraordinary daughter. Although not as strong as him, she still managed to keep her empire safe. Of course, that's not the only reason. In front of them, there was a large screen displaying Qin Yuan's battle. Seeing him win the battle so easily, the younger generations who didn't know much about the world couldn't help but sneer. Have the brains of these 4 people been eaten by pigs? Why did they attack the home of an eternal saint ancestor? Or are they simply tired of living? Every younger generation aspires to become a supreme expert, but how is it so easy? Even the God clan and Devil clan were unable to give birth to a divine emperor every generation. Seeing the 4 supreme experts do such a stupid thing, they wondered if being a supreme expert didn't require any brains at all. On the throne in the hall sat a woman who seemed to be nearing middle age. She has reddish-white skin and light brown hair which is tied in a bun with a silver crown. Her height was probably around 178 centimeters, slightly shorter than Su Mei. It was almost imperceptible and no one would compare them, as she also had a very charming body. A pair of legs hidden behind the slit of her dress invites the curiosity of anyone who sees her. Ah, Eternal Star Venerable looks twice as handsome, said the woman standing beside her. After saying that, she covered her mouth with her hand as she suddenly remembered who was sitting beside her. She couldn't help but glance at the woman on top of the throne. The latter was staring at the screen without blinking. Seeing Qin Yuan, her cheeks turned red for a moment. Oh goddess, the queen is also mesmerized. Does she miss her husband now? Hasn't she been saying all this time she's tired of their husband and wife life? But Eternal Star Venerable is indeed very heroic this time around, he gives off a feeling as if he has become a youth once again. My queen, I hope you return to him, at least until you have children from him, so that our empire has an heir.